Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us this morning for our discussion with Congresswoman Cindy Axne. She's our two-term Congresswoman serving District 3 here in the state of Iowa, and we're very happy for her to join us today. There's a lot going on out in D.C., as you're all aware. If you watch the news, there's plenty going on from, the American Rescue Plan to conversations in the Senate about nominations. There's a lot of different things obviously happening out in D.C., so we're really excited to have a good conversation with the Congresswoman this morning. But before I kind of turn things over to her to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening out in DC and then jump into Q&A, I did just want to let everyone know, as I mentioned, she is our two-term Congresswoman. She's now serving in her second term in the U.S. House of Representatives representing Iowa District 3. And just to give you an idea of kind of the roles that she has out in DC, she serves on the Committee for Financial Services, and within that committee, she serves on the Subcommittee on Investor Protection, Entrepreneurship, and Capital Markets, and she serves on the Subcommittee on Housing, Community Development, and Insurance as well. And then on the Committee for Agriculture, she serves on the Subcommittee for Commodity Exchanges, Energy and Credit, and Conservation and Forestry. So obviously, those are some areas that she's very keenly tied into and working very closely with. And we do have some questions that'll focus on some of those things, but obviously there's a lot of other issues that we want to talk about as well. But before we get there, we'll turn it over to the Congresswoman to give us an update on a few things that she's been working on out in DC. Congresswoman Axne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. So glad to be here with all of you, and can't wait to be out there in person with you all again. Drew brought up some of the work that I'm involved with within the committees that I'm on. And I've talked with many of you about those issues. I see a lot of familiar faces here. We've had housing roundtables out in Council Bluffs. We've had internet discussions and connectivity and broadband discussions out in Council Bluffs. Of course, lots of work in visiting businesses, as well as taking a look at our ethanol industry and making sure that it's profiting in Iowa and providing good jobs for the people in our state. At the same time, as I'm doing all that, I'm also a mom and a small business owner myself. So my husband and I own a small digital design firm. And I'll tell you, I think it's one of the things that helps me stay in tune with the people in Iowa to make sure that our voices are heard out here, because all of you parents on the phone here know that when you leave your job, your work's not done. You're doing something for your children. You're checking in with your community. You're making sure that the school and your child are, doing what needs to be done for their future. You're looking at the healthcare for your family. And then I talked to my husband about business way late at night. I'm not involved in it anymore, of course, because of this, but this is the life of a regular person in Iowa. We get up in the morning and we kind of work till the end, and then we deal with our family issues and hopefully spend a little bit of time with them. So I'm glad to be able to bring that, honestly, a pragmatic Midwest voice out here to Washington, as I constantly push our leadership and others to ensure that the voices of people in the Midwest are heard. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about the next 4 years under President Biden's leadership. He's running strong right out of the gate. We have our reinvestment. I'm sorry, I went back to my Obama days when I was at the state of Iowa under Governors Vilsack through Branstad, and I oversaw the Reinvestment and Recovery Act money. But, this is the American Rescue Plan. So here we are 10 years later about rescuing America again from the brink of a recession and making sure that our businesses stay afloat. Our families have what they need to put money in their pocket, keep their lights on, and certainly put food on the table. And then, of course, a health pandemic like we've never seen. So we're actively pushing forth a bill that passed out of the House already on the rescue plan. Of course, the Senate is working on it now to make sure that we address those issues. Within it is a massive chunk of funding for overcoming this COVID disease and making sure that we have vaccinations across the country, that we see the distribution tick up, and make sure that states like Iowa, where we're having a pretty darn tough time, get what it needs, but also distributes what it needs, so that we don't fall behind in what I believe is the most important way to get our economy back up and running. That's making sure that we address the health epidemic. So we have a big chunk of money, about $400 billion within that big package going, strictly for vaccine distribution, testing, et cetera, mobile spots. That's going to be great for rural areas in our state. And really just addressing that issue, servicing the needs of our healthcare providers so that they can actually implement mass vaccinations. At the same time, that bill does a lot to shore up what's necessary within our communities so we can get back in action and back to normal. I know all of us want to get back to normal. There's not one of us that likes to don the mask every single day, but it's important to do. But, so this bill that we've got also ensures that we address structural pieces like childcare so that our parents actually have an opportunity to, leave their kids at a place where they're safe and they feel comfortable with. We've lost a lot of childcare providers throughout the country and, of course, in Iowa. And that's going to be really important. I consider childcare to be infrastructure for our families to be able to do their jobs. If you have a bridge that's out and you can't get to work, I don't see the difference between that and not having childcare opportunity for your family because you also can't get to work. So we've got to start taking this very seriously. We also have a lot of support in that bill for our schools because we know we want to get them up and running. It's not just been a burden on families, but it's certainly been really difficult for our children. And as a mom of a teenage boy in high school, I understand that. A lot of our kids today are struggling. They're facing mental health issues. So are our teachers and administration. And so there's quite a bit of support in the package for that. And to make sure that schools, as they do reopen, can do so safely. And President Biden wants our schools to reopen. We all want our schools to reopen, but we need to do it safely so that we don't exacerbate this problem. And I know we want to get to questions, so I'll end this with a couple of key points on the economic side of things. We continue to support small businesses through the PPP. We also have support for a lot of industries, live entertainment. Our restaurants are getting another, punch in the arm to keep them alive. We're going to make sure that we don't walk out of this with businesses that, couldn't make it. I know there are some that won't, and it is really tragic. But we're trying to do every single thing we can to ensure that the smallest of businesses, as well as those who are large and employ a lot of people, have what it needs to stay alive and continue to employ people. We've extended, of course, the unemployment benefits to keep people moving forward. The rental eviction moratorium has been extended. That President Biden did that a few weeks ago. And so we're going to continue to make sure that those economic elements of our communities stay intact. That is a real down and dirty. It includes broadband, support for some infrastructure issues and so many other things. And of course, I've been working on broadband for a long time, and we're getting elements of it put in place. And I know Council Bluffs is in another story because of Blink, and you guys are just such an impressive group to watch when it comes to that. But we still have lots of places in Pottawatomie County and certainly throughout the state that are in dire need of connectivity. So this is where we're at with that plan. As Drew mentioned, we're pushing forth other issues, as we speak. We're going to have a big month out here in regard to, making sure that there's equity for women. Violence against women is going to be moving. The act to prevent that is going to be moving forward. Last term, I guess, I was able to get some additional funding put in there to support our nonprofits, as well as our police officers, et cetera, who deal with those issues. And so I'm hoping that I can get that additional funding back in there again, because unfortunately, as somebody who worked at the state and did work with on these issues, I know that we're not alone in this, and we've got to make sure that we address it. We're looking at the equal pay for women to make sure that our families can make it. I don't think, when I look at these issues that are related to women, I look at them as related to families. This is not just a women's issue. These are family issues. And if they're family issues, they're community issues. Because when Iowa is one of the states that has the most, two income families, so two parents working, that means that the family's involved and it impacts the entire community. And when we don't support women with equal pay, we lose out. we lose out actually approximately $10,000 in every Iowa family's pocket for that mom who is not getting the equal pay. Think about that. $10,000 that could be used towards their child's post-secondary education. $10,000 that could be used towards down payment for a home. You think about how this can compound itself and provide opportunity for that family and then for the community. It's huge. And so that's why things like this are so important. I will always stand by equity in our communities, no matter what it is, because I will always be with the idea that if we all do better, then literally we all do better. So I thank you so much for having me here, and I'm anxious to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And one thing I will say to the people on the call here, our attendees, if you do have a question, please feel free to put it into the chat box. We do have some issues that we want to touch base with the Congresswoman on, but if you do have a specific question you would like addressed, put it in the chat box and we'll do our best to make sure that it gets asked. And also, Congresswoman, I did want to remind you too, as we head into Q&A, that this is being recorded for people who may not be able to attend, so they can watch it. And there is also some media on the call as well, just so you're aware. But I wanted to follow up on a few things as we wait for some questions to start trickling in from some of the attendees. But on the piece with the American Rescue Plan, I know you were working really hard to try to get a provision that you really had pushed, the unemployment tax relief. And I was curious, was that able to get over the hump and included in that American Rescue Plan?
Disappointingly, it did not get into the House plan. However, we still have a chance to get it into the Senate. And, it's really taken full steam. And it's been an interesting learning lesson for me as well on this is a bill that people want to see. And, I've looked at how we're going to figure out how to address bills that are so important like this in the future so I can get a little bit more support early on. And now I know how to put more pressure on. But I'm telling you, I've got everybody on full steam. I've got people pressuring Schumer in the Senate right now, very influential people pressuring Schumer in the Senate right now. I am working with Senator Durbin to make sure that he puts this as a key priority because he wrote the companion bill in the Senate for my House version. So I can tell you literally, this is a bill that from the most progressive folks to the most moderate pragmatic folks say it's so important. And Drew, it allows those folks who received unemployment to write off the first $10,200 in taxes, so they're not paying for that. Because I cannot imagine, not having a job, living, week by week, and then getting a giant tax bill that you have no money for. And so, to me, this is common sense, and we're going to keep pushing. I talked to the leader of the House yesterday about it, and he said he would